You waiting for us? You know, I wanted to do this show on April Fool's, but Susan was in Washington, D.C., so she made me change it.
Sorry.
So we're wearing the hats anyway.
That's right, damn it.
Welcome, everyone, to the second annual Mad River Valley Mad River Story Slam.
Okay.
Taking place in the Mad River Valley here in Waitsfield. Did anyone see last year's show? Not show of hands, clap. I can't see a damn thing.
Nice.
So that was virtual. I don't know if you remember that. So here we are live, and I think one of the best things for the storytellers anyway is that they are backstage, you know, getting to know each other and doing the things that you get to do when it's live.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're pacing, they're doing that nervous peeing thing that I do before a show. You know.
I'll be right.
Okay, bye.
So let me just tell you a little bit about the evening. So we have 7 storytellers backstage.
Woo!
Actually, sorry, we have 6 storytellers backstage. One's right here.
Hey, you roped me into it.
Yeah. And we've had 2 workshops to get to this point. So we call these curated stories. So they started at one point, and we've been working together along with
Sue Schmidt. And yeah, so we want a big shout out to Sue Schmidt from The Moth. Amazing, yeah, give it up for Sue. Woo!
She's going to be watching this. She's not here tonight, but she's
Sue,
watching.
We're sucking up to you. No, she was invaluable because she joined us for our second workshop when people had kind of honed the story. So it was maybe like 90% there. And folks had a chance to read their whole story and get professional tips, not just you and I. But professional tips from a Moth storyteller. And she just has this amazing gift to really drill right down, like, could you just add a detail here, or could you explain what you meant by that? So thanks so much to her to help us really
She's amazing.
Get the stories into the home stretch.
She should do that for a living. I
should.
mentioned that to her.
You said, you could have a career in this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Get that thing out of my face. So speaking of hats, I have a hat right here in front of me, and I have a bunch of cards. And I know that Carrie told you when you checked. Just leave it. I can persist. Oh yeah, that's much better. I know Carrie told you about it, but you've had some time to think about it now. So I have some cards here, and I have a marker. And so the way this is going to work, we have 2 storytellers that curated that have been working through this that are going to start the evening, and our 3rd storyteller is going to come from the hat.
Could be one of them.
It's pretty exciting. So is there anyone who's saying, okay, I'll put my name in the hat right now, and I'm going to just come right up to the bottom of this stage, and I will hand you a card and a marker? I don't see anything. So this is, I have some names in here already, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, we don't need you.
Yeah, we don't need you. But
we want you.
At intermission, you will have another opportunity
That's
to add
right.
your name, because we will
will
someone from the audience.
Shamelessly plug for somebody to come up here until they do.
Yeah, shamelessly.
Exactly.
Okay, I am going to do, I have this also in my hand. You will hear that backstage if someone's getting a little long-winded.
That works for cats and dogs too.
Oh.
It sounds like their dinner day.
So if you hear this backstage, it's okay. It's just a gentle warning to the people on stage to wrap it up. What else? Bathrooms. There's one in the lobby. There's one downstairs. There's one upstairs. We're going to take a 5-minute intermission, so that's the time to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then emergency exits. That big red sign there, and then right back where you came in.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds good.
Your turn.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I just wanted to share a quick, speaking of stories, that when I was young, I know it's a long time ago now, but when I was young, I was confused, Doug. It's true. I was a bit of a wise ass, and looking back, I was always looking for a way to fit in. And lucky for me, I came from a long line of Irish storytellers. So we enjoyed making fun of each other and other people and just being fun in general. But I was always really struggling to fit in, and I remember this one time when I was living in England, we went to a medieval banquet, and we all had to decide if we wanted to dress like maidens, like Doug, or if we wanted to, they also had some male costumes with funny wigs. And I was really torn at the time. And this was way before it was cool to be non-binary or gender fluid, right? So I had to decide, and then I saw a hat much like this. And I put it on my head, and I realized I could make people laugh, and it didn't matter who I was, that I could fit in. And so humor and acting foolish is a cool gift because it draws people in, and they want to be a part of your story, and your story will really resonate with them. So for all the people out there that act like fools, let's give it up. All right. So,
I'm gonna leave it to it.
I did. Our first storyteller, Siobhan Travers. She is a Waitsfield resident. She has a knack for getting herself in unprecedented situations. Last summer, she shared some of them in the weekly Valley Reporter postings about her cross-country cycling trip. When asked the question, what is your favorite smell, Siobhan said that one of her favorite smells is eucalyptus. Please welcome Siobhan.
Spectacular.
When I turned 30, I added a new rule to my playbook. Never ever give a truck driver carrying 30,000 pounds of steel the finger. It was the second day of my family's journey from Vermont to Southern California. We were moving across the country, and we were in two separate vehicles. My then husband was driving the 24-foot Ryder truck with our 6-year-old son, our cat, and 4 newborn kittens. I was behind in the white Chevy station wagon with my 6-year-old son, who was sprawled across the front seat asleep. It was around 11 o'clock at night, and we'd gotten off the highway looking for a state park in western Pennsylvania. There was no one else on the roads. So if you've ever driven a Ryder or a U-Haul truck carrying all your belongings, you know that they don't go up hills very quickly. So we were making some progress, but really puttering along. And I was following behind, and I looked, and I could see these headlights, and they were getting closer and closer and closer to the rear end of the station wagon. And I was exhausted and worried and thought, this person might hit me. So what am I gonna do here? I get up to the next top of the hill, I pull off to the right so they can pass me, and for an added bonus, I roll down the window and I give that driver my middle finger. Such relief, which lasted all of about 15 seconds, because the driver that was behind me turned out to be a semi 18-wheeler, and he had pulled up in front and blocked the road. I wasn't going anywhere. And the Ryder truck, they were gone. They had long gone. So I was scared, but he came up, he ran up, this truck driver, he had a white t-shirt and he had blue jeans and maybe a tattoo, and he ran up and he said, pounded on the window, and I sort of like rolled it down. He said, "Lady, what's wrong with you? Don't you know you never give a truck driver the finger? I'm carrying 30,000 pounds of steel." Well, I was about to say, "Oh, okay, sorry." But instead I said, "But you were right on my tail. I thought you were going to hit me." His response was, "Is that your old man up there in that truck?" I didn't say anything. He said, well, I'm going to go and get him. So there we had a race. He jumps back in this 18-wheeler, and I'm trying to catch up behind in the station wagon, and I'm hoping that my then husband and my son had gotten to the campground and that they were inside safe. But no, we had forgotten that in western Pennsylvania, the state parks, when the sun goes down, the gate goes down. And when I came up upon the Ryder truck, they were sitting in front of a locked gate, and the semi was right next to them across the road. What was I gonna do? I had to warn him. This was way before cell phones. So this was my way of warning him. I drove up as close as I could get. I honked on the horn multiple times, and I flashed those headlights multiple times, and then I turned around and took off about a quarter of a mile up the road. And there I sat, looking in the rearview mirror, just what should I do? I should go to the state police. Where are state police on these back roads in Pennsylvania? What's gonna happen? You know, is my husband gonna get all bloody, bruised, beaten up? Why was I so stupid? Why did I give that truck driver the finger? Well, it seemed like a long, long time, but it probably was only a few minutes. I looked back in my rearview mirror, and the truck driver was getting back in the semi and driving away. So I steeled myself. I had to go back and look at the damage that I had caused. I drove back up. This time I parked right next to the Ryder truck. I opened the door, and there was my then husband and my son staring at a road map. No bruises, no blood. I said, "Are you all okay?" And my husband looked at me and said, "Are you okay? What was that you were doing with the headlights and the horn and driving away?" And I said, "I tried to warn you. I didn't want you to get hurt." And then I said, "So what did happen when the truck driver banged on the driver's door of the Ryder truck?" And he said, "Well," he said to me, "You gotta tell your old lady that she never should give the truck driver the finger." And I said, "Well, what did you say, or what did you do?" And he said, "Oh, I promised I would." And he left. That was all that happened. Whew! Eventually, we found our way into another road in the back of the state park. And as we were pitching our tent for the night, I said to my family, "I'm buying walkie-talkies tomorrow. We have to have some way to communicate on this trip. And this can never happen again." And sure enough, it has never happened again, because anytime I see the reflection, perhaps, of a truck driver in my rear view mirror with their headlights, I just clench my fists and I say to myself, never, ever give a truck driver carrying 30,000 pounds of steel the finger.
This finger, right? What finger did you think she was talking about? So Susan and I got in an argument back there because one of us forgot to tell you or remind you or announce the theme for the evening. I lost the argument. Feeling foolish. If you've seen any of our advertising, you knew that, but I feel a little foolish about not mentioning what our entire theme for the evening is, but there you have it. Feeling foolish. Our next storyteller is indeed Susan Loynd, and she states that finally we have a topic that on which she is an expert. She enjoys finding the funny in situations and playing the fool for comedic purposes. She enjoys stand-up, improv, storytelling, and lives in Facein on a muddy road. When asked the question, "What is your favorite smell?" she responded, "The crisp smell of fall and decaying leaves." Please welcome Susan.
I can't wait to hear the story. That was our sign-off when I would be finishing up a story or about to tell a story to my friend Carolyn. We had a long-standing game of one-upsmanship. She was the HR director up at Howard Center in Burlington, and we would get together on statewide committees and tell the funniest HR stories that ever happened. So I would say to her, for example, "Hey, did you ever have a workers' comp claim where somebody slammed their breast into the filing cabinet?" And she'd say, "No. Did you ever find a bag of somebody's weed at work and then have them ask you to pay for their conference for their registration to a cannabis conference?" And I'd say, "No. How about, did you ever have somebody that you fired that then turned to you and said, 'Hey, other than being fired, how am I doing so far?'" So we had a long-standing funny relationship. In June of 2016, she called me up and told me that she had terminal cancer. And she still remained one of the funniest people in my life. And we would continue to get together and we'd go out to dinner, and she would complain that nobody wanted to talk to her about the fact that she was dying. And even more frustrating to her was that nobody would talk to her about the mundane, benign, funny things that happen to people every day. And so, of course, she called me. And so I would tell her the funny things that were going on. And fast forward a couple years later, in March of 2019, she was in hospice. And I went to visit her with a couple friends, and I had something that really funny that had just happened to me that day, and I thought, I can't talk about this. The woman's dying. What's funny about death? And my friends reminded me that laughter is indeed the best medicine. So they convinced me to tell her this story. And so I went into her hospice room, and it was very sobering, and she's not doing well at all. And I said, do you want to hear a story? And she says, "Hell yeah." Okay. So I go to this wellness conference, and we were winning an award, and my coworker was going to accept the award, but she was very shy. She wanted me to come with her. Unfortunately, the conference was sold out. So I'd always wanted to be a badass. You know how people like break into weddings and they pretend to be somebody else? So I saunter up to the registration table and I'm going, Erica, Nancy, Fred, okay. You know, I'm a little gender fluid. I thought maybe I could pull it off. And I must have hesitated because the woman on the other side of the registration table leans towards me and beckons me closer. And I lean in and she says, "Psst, you want to be Lindsay?" And I say, "Hell yeah, I want to be Lindsay." So I grab the badge and I put it on, and I'm Lindsay. And all her coworkers are looking at me kind of weird. And they're trying to hand me a Sharpie to write my real name, and I say, no, I am Lindsay. And I grab all the swag, and I grab my bag, and I'm strutting away, you know. And she comes running after me, and she says, "Hey, there's something you should know about Lindsay." And I said, "What's that?" "She's in labor, that's why she's not here." This struck me as hilarious on so many levels. I started doing this thing, you know, walking around like this. I sent an email back to my HR team and I said, "Hey team, I've successfully infiltrated the wellness conference. You can call me Lindsay." Selfie. There's just one thing. Apparently I'm in labor. I started getting all these emails back from my HR team asking me if I had filled out my short-term disability had I applied for family medical leave, whether I wanted to get in on the baby pool, if I had any names picked out. So this was funny because I knew most of the people at this conference, but there I was, Lindsay. So I got a lot of quizzical looks. And I was taking a break out in the lobby, and one of the executive directors from another agency came up to me and said, "Susan?" And I said, I am Lindsay. And she wouldn't go away, so I started panting like I was in labor. I told her how many centimeters dilated I was. She ran screaming, as you might imagine. So I go up on stage as Lindsay with my coworker. That was kind of fun. And we got our award from Governor Scott and Mark Levine. And I went to visit Carolyn, and I'm telling her this story, and she starts laughing. And she's laughing more and more. She pulls out her iPad and starts stalking the real Lindsay. And she finds where she's registered for all her baby stuff, and she gets really, really into this. And I get emotionally dilated just thinking about this, the part that I played in Lindsay's child's birth. And we laughed until our stomachs hurt. And I was so moved by this situation that I took off my Lindsay badge and I put it on the windowsill in Carolyn's room next to our flowers and the wine and the chocolate we had smuggled in for her. And she died a couple weeks later, and the obituary talked about all of her professional accomplishments and some of her hobbies, but it didn't come close to capturing what a fun, free-spirited, humorous person that she really was. And so, Carolyn, I can't wait to hear the story.
This is exciting.
What's it gonna be? Wendy! Come on down! That's next time. Okay.
We'd like to introduce Wendy, but we don't know who she is. Here she is! Oh. Apparently, Susan knows who she is.
I know Wendy, I know everybody.
Okay.
And what's your favorite smell?
Oh gosh, my favorite smell. Cinnamon?
Cinnamon. I think another one of our storytellers said cinnamon. You're going to have to think of something else out there. And where do you live? You're in
Middlesex.
Middlesex. Wendy's from Middlesex. We were in an improv workshop, weren't we, a couple weeks ago? Super fun to see you again. And we took a class together several years ago, pre-COVID, in those days, right?
Yes, and I knew that I was the only one who put something in.
Oh no, there's
That's
more.
not true, Willie. There's all the ones I taped to the bottom of the hat earlier.
I think I was one of the few.
You were
Welcome,
the first.
Welcome.
Here, let me have that name back just in case.
No, this isn't my name.
Those are your notes.
These are my cheat sheets because I'm totally unprepared and the lights
we'll
are...
let her, we
Okay.
won't let the other people cheat, but we'll let you cheat.
Wendy.
Wendy!
Oh, this is so weird. I can't see a thing except lights in front of my face. So you guys should kick me off if I run over my time because I'm not prepared, but I like to make things up. So let's see. I want to tell you a story. It's 1982. I graduated college and returned to Denmark, where I had lived for a year, to reunite with a lover. It didn't work. I landed in the Middle East, in Israel, had some adventures, and ended up in a disaster, and returned to my hometown of Plainfield, New Jersey, unsure of who I was and what the hell I was doing. My mom at the time had a business teaching English as a second language. So she invited me to work for her. And I had been a second language learner. I had become fluent in Danish, so I sort of understood what I was going to do. but really didn't know what I was doing, but didn't matter that much. Anyway, my mom had a bunch of clients, and one of her clients was the Commission for the Blind in New Jersey. And I have to backtrack just a little bit to tell you that I am a second-generation Jewish American woman. So, my mom had clients in northern New Jersey that were blind, and they were Arabs. And there were probably 4. And I was sent to work with Layla. Now, Layla was Palestinian, blind, my same age, and she had come to the States. She had siblings here, and she came to get her master's so that she could go back to the Middle East and do good work. But the Commission for the Blind didn't think that her writing skills were good enough. So they made her take a tutor, which was me, and also go to sort of mobility and training to make sure she was independent enough. Now, Layla had gone to a school for the blind in Palestine that was run by the British. And her spoken English was perfect. So she was highly insulted that they didn't think her writing skills were good enough. So I began to work with Layla, and she didn't want to work on her writing skills. So we spent a lot of time talking about many things, and I guess I must have met with her 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. We had been meeting for a long time, and she says to me, "Wendy, I just met my first nice Jewish person." And I said, And she turned crimson. And I said, And that became our friendship. Now, that year, I was living in a house of jazz musicians. And I have so many Layla stories, so I could go on for a really long time. But Layla came, we became the best of friends. My dad at that time was very sick with emphysema, and one of the things that he loved to do was to go to Rutgers in New Jersey and hear concerts. And Layla was eventually at Rutgers studying, so she became part of our family. My dad would pick her up, and they would go off and hear classical music concerts together, and that enmeshed her even more in my family. And I would visit her family. She had a sister and brothers up in northern New Jersey, and it enriched my life immensely. So I just wanted to tell you a couple little Layla stories. One time, I dragged her up to Vermont with some other friends, and we decided to go hiking. Now, Layla was up for everything. Blind from birth with 2 other blind siblings. It was congenital. So we decided that we would hike Mount Abe. And Mount Abe is a serious hike. I had 2 Danish friends and an American friend and my dog at the time with a backpack, and Layla and I. So we began hiking, and everybody else went ahead of us. And as we're getting to where the little lodge is before you scramble up the rocks at the very top, it starts to rain and thunder and rain and thunder. And it was intense. So Layla and I hung out at the lodge. We ate our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Our friends all went up to the top and then came down again. And it was slippery as could be and still raining. Thunderstorm, I think, had abated. But they all went ahead of us. And step by step, Layla and I made our way slowly down Mount Abe. But somehow we landed on a different trailhead than all of our friends. And eventually we made it back to the van, but it was a long, long day. And we were staying with friends in Starksboro, and we had a van. And we got there, and Layla was so exhausted that she didn't come out. She spent the night in the van. I think she had a sleep there. I think she probably peed or pooped in a plastic bag, but she was done. And she tells that story forevermore. The other Layla's story is that, like I said, she would come visit us in New Jersey. I lived with a household of jazz musicians, and Layla's blind. And she had grown up in the Middle East, so she's 20-something and a virgin. And one of the jazz musicians was Bill, who at the time was probably in his late 50s. And Layla and Bill hit it off and became lovers for years and years and years. And she was initially shocked that he was twice her age, but at some point it never mattered, and they had a lovely on-again, off-again relationship. The other story of Layla was that we lived in Plainfield, New Jersey, on the border of the ghetto. House of jazz musicians, 4 dogs, white people. And Layla was like an adventurer. She is still an adventurer, highly independent. We had a couch on the front porch, and Layla decided she was going to go off for a walk. And she had a cane, and we hung out, and she went off on her walk. And again, it was one of those stormy, hot summer days, and the weather comes, and there's thunder and lightning and whatever. And Layla's not back. And Layla's still not back. And Layla's still not back. And eventually, a car pulls up in front of our house, and out comes Layla. And she comes up to the house, and she tells us that she had been out walking, and in Plainfield and that part of the town were tons of black gospel churches. And Layla loves music, and she had walked past and heard a lot of beautiful gospel singing. So she told the story of how she just walked her way into the church, and they were, everybody was being saved and hallelujah and everything, and she just had the time of her life, made friends, and they drove her back to our house. And the last piece of the story was in 1990-ish. I was so privileged to go visit Layla in the Middle East. She was in Ramallah. She did get her master's. She is an amazing trauma worker, works all over the world helping people. I visited her, and I stayed in a tiny little hostel in East Jerusalem with a French nun. And it's such a small world. I looked up in the hostel, and there's a picture by Mary Azarian. And I said, oh my gosh, she's from where I live. And the French nun said to me, oh, our friends Jules and Helen Rabin gave us this picture. And Jules and Helen Rabin live in Plainfield. They are bakers, and they're good friends of us. And so the world is so small, and Layla to this day is my dearest sister, and I just want to share what a wonderful adventure it is and was and will always be knowing her. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. It takes a lot of courage to get up here and do this. So we're looking for some folks for the second act as well. Thank you, Wendy. It's always cool that people come up. All right, next up, Dennis Mcsorley is a guy who enjoys being himself, whoever that is. The whole thing is a story. When asked the question, what is your favorite smell? He said the smell of fresh baked bread. Please welcome Dennis.
You want to
Right there, yeah.
Okay.
you know you shouldn't have come out here. I don't know, why did you sign up for this thing? You know, why did you wear that shirt? You had to bring, the other shirt was a better shirt. Did you fly up? That's the sound of feeling like a fool. And it's familiar to me, and it's just a feeling, it's not a fact. So this little, I went back in my memory to try to remember something about when I got this feeling, and this has to do with being 9 years old, Halloween, my mother and the 5th grade at St. Matthias Parochial Catholic School in Queens, New York. My mother used to dress me up in sailor suits and all kinds of little crazy cowboy stuff, and I didn't mind any of that until I grew up a little bit. And my mom is, she's not a stage mom, but she's grandiose, she's big. She walks in a room, you know she's there. She doesn't care what people think about her. She likes to go to opera and music and dance and trips, and her big thing was that she would surprise you with things and tell you you're gonna love it, even though you had no vote on this or anything like that. So, and she was great with making things and fixing things, and she was just a dynamo on the sewing machine. So she'd get these patterns, and she gets me in the living room, and she's like, come on, stand still. And she's doing outlines and at night, and Halloween's coming, and she doesn't, and what she has done is she has knitted a complete full-body cat suit that has the feet are inside, the paws are out, there's little slits to get your hands out. There's about a 27-inch tail. It covers my face, it zips up the back, it's got ears. And how happy she was to hear this. Sister Ferenc, Catholic schools don't have too much excitement. And this nun said, we're gonna have a Halloween party for like 45 minutes in the afternoon, and you can wear your costumes. Unfortunately, I told that to my mother, and she said, great, you can debut the cat suit at the school. I go, Mom, no, you don't understand. The boys were in like a patch. A couple of people had the sheet with the eyes cut out of it, like guess what they were? A little wand, a little Cinderella stuff, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. So I'm like, so I got this thing in a bag, and I go down there, and I'm like feeling that I'm gonna be ridiculous, I'm a complete fool. People are gonna laugh at me, which is what that feeling is. I asked Sister Ferenc, who's like 22 years old, that's why she threw the party. She didn't know any better. Like, she just thought we could go crazy. We could have a couple of juicy fruits and talk. And I asked her if I could go in the coat closet, and I put the cat suit on, zip it up. And somebody even helped me put on the 4 whiskers that I needed. And I walk out completely, crimson-faced and out of my mind, and I am the hit of the costumes in the class. The whole class loves it. People are petting me, they're wooing me. They think it's just, who made that? Where did you get that? And right away, I'm like, yeah, of course, I love this. I'm the center of attention, like, what the hell, And, T.S. Eliot has something to do with this too. You'll hear about him in a little while. So my mom would go on and do these kinds of things, and, I had this, like, passive-aggressive love-hate for her, but she just had this verb. She just didn't care what people thought. She just would do it, and if it annoyed you, too bad. She would just live life. And so as time went on, I found out that if you put me in a altar boy costume, which I was, or a cap and gown, or you put me on a Little League baseball uniform, I actually, like my introduction, I actually think I am a baseball player, or an altar boy, or, a tuxedo, maybe I'm somebody's husband, or I'm at the prom, I'm James Bond. All of these things come with the outfit. And I wondered where that all came from. So time would go by, and I got into things like that, and now I was much more comfortable. I wasn't so afraid. And T.S. Eliot was a pretty known poet. I don't know if you knew, he actually won the Nobel Prize for Literature, but he wrote a verse in 1937 called Old Possum's Practical Guide to Cats. And nobody knew about this, and then they played it on the radio. So my life is going along, and I'm a teacher, and I'm doing a little bit of skits, and I'm doing workshops, and I'm doing this kind of stuff where I'm now comfortable standing in front of people and talking, which would lead to more things as time went on. So here it is, 1980, and Andrew Lloyd Webber, of all people, and a creative crew decide they're going to make an adaptation of T.S. Eliot's verses, and they do. And in 1987, in the West End of London, Cats, the musical, debuts. And it's a sensation. It comes to the United States, and it would go on to be for 18 years. This thing played on Broadway. I never went to see it. You can know why, because like how I should be there, but I had to start to thank my mother, and I had to think, all of this like angst that I had, and all of this fear, and all this embarrassment. It's nice to get the attention. It's nice to be in the spotlight. It's nice to go up there, and that people, admire that in you. So go ahead and do that stuff. So I got into theater up here. I got to do a lot of things along those lines, and got to be somebody other than myself, because you can do that when you play like that. So I want to thank T.S. Eliot, of course, and my mom, and all the people that helped me. And once in a while, I am the cat's meow. Thanks.
Hey, you enjoying yourself so far? I guess that means yes. Marcy Robinson lives in Warren and has a lot of people here to support her, and enjoys acting in the Valley Players, comedy classes, and short walks on the beach. When asked the question, "What is your favorite smell?" she said, she loves the smell of the ocean. Please welcome Marcy.
Friends. We all have them, we all love them, but sometimes they tend to get us into trouble. So when my friends told me about this great idea for fun they had, I should have said, "What are you thinking?" But I didn't. I just went along. They'd done it before. My friend's Maggie's mother was coming along. I even knew that my mother had done the same thing when she was a teenager. The adventure? Sliding down a ski slope at night. I was 18. We had a bunch of friends. We had this weekend planned. We were going to start off sliding down Smuggler's Notch Resort, followed by going to Maggie's house for hot chocolate, popcorn, games. Yeah, we were a wild group. So the evening was progressing well. We were trudging up the mountain, sliding down, trudging up the mountain, sliding down. It's great. Maggie's mother leaves. She's gonna go home and get a head start on the hot chocolate and popcorn. We're getting tired, but we decide we're gonna go for that one last run, and it's gonna be a good one. So this time we're climbing up higher than we ever have. I didn't have my own sled with me, so Maggie's boyfriend Chris said, "Hey, you wanna ride with me?" I said, "Sure, as long as you don't kill me." So up we go. Me, Chris, and his little red plastic sled. The kind that looks like a boat and you get for $5.99 at the hardware store. So we stop. I get in, feet firmly planted against the front of the sled, scooch up as far as I can so Chris in his 6-foot frame can get in behind me on something that's really meant for 2 children. Off we go. We're going fast. We're going faster. Then suddenly, bam! I am no longer going fast. I am no longer going anywhere. I am face down on the mountain in the snow, my feet dangling in a ditch behind me. The sled had gone off without us. Chris had skidded off to the side. And suddenly I hear, "Margie, Margie, are you okay?" Like, dude, you almost killed me and you can't even get my name right? Anyway, needless to say, I was not okay. I couldn't move, I couldn't roll over. Another friend came along, and you know how they tell you when there's a possible spinal injury, you don't move the person and you get help immediately? My friends ignored that. They tried to pick me up. That didn't work. So some other friends came back up after the sled had come down without us. They brought that up, rolled me into it, and gently brought me down the mountain. At the base, two of them picked me up, and I had my arms around their shoulders because my feet could not touch the ground. We found it was like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night by now. So there's no one around. We find this back entrance corridor and conference rooms to the lodge. So we go in there, they lay me down on a couch, and then I start shaking, and I can't stop shaking. So now my friends are all taking off their jackets and piling on me. I'm just encased in jackets. Someone goes to find some tea or some hot chocolate or something to warm me up. Of course, I can't lift my head up, so it all dribbles down my face in the front of me. Clearly, this is not getting better. So someone finds a phone. Okay, we need some help. And the dial directory. Actually, probably had to dial, not press the buttons back then. We all turn our heads in unison, looking at the phone ringing in the darkened conference room next to us. No help was coming there. So suddenly a new couple come in that had been going to join us, but they were running a little late. Somehow they found us there. They assessed the situation, and being a little older than us and much wiser, they were in their 20s, they look at the situation and say, we need to call an ambulance. So they did. So the next thing, I'm at the hospital. They take me in to get x-rays. As I'm coming out, they said, your father's here. And I thought, But they stop, and I stare up at the man standing there. And my response is, that's not my father. Of course, the staff looked confused. I said, I know him. He's somebody's father, but he's not mine. One of my friends had called their father who lived nearby, who had come to see what was going on and see what he could do to help. So now x-rays have confirmed that I have a compression fracture of my L1 vertebra with internal injuries to my liver and pancreas. Now, because no bone fragments had broken away, I didn't need to have surgery. All I needed to do was lay in a hospital bed, flat on my back, for 4 weeks. I had plenty of visitors from my family and my friends. I spent untold number of hours listening to the Thriller album on my little Walkman. That's the only tape I remember. I don't know why. But after 4 weeks, I'm getting a little anxious to get some sort of normal activity. Pretty soon, I have to go to Burlington to be fitted for a custom brace that I will wear out of the hospital for 3 months. But in the meantime, in order for me to be able to get there in a car, I need to have a body cast. So, like your basic cast on your arm, your leg, they wrap me in cotton batting from my hips to my armpits. Then comes the wet plaster bandages around and around and around. I could move my legs and my arms. I kind of felt like the Michelin Man. So when my friends come and say, hey, let's have pizza, I'm ready. But there's too many, we can't stay in the room, so someone says, hey, why don't we go down to the cafeteria? Should have said, what are you thinking? But no, I thought, I got this cast, I can get up, I can walk a little bit. What's a little stroll down to the basement cafeteria? So down we go. I'm having a great time. A couple friends help me back up. We greet some very nice but very concerned nurses. Suddenly, they had gone on to do rounds and come into the room to find me simply gone. So with this cast, it was very difficult for me to move around. To get out of bed, I had to roll onto my side, stick my legs off the side of the bed, then sit up sideways, and then scooch down off until my feet hit the floor, and then I could move forward. So how did I do that all by myself? They didn't understand. Where could I have gone? So they're calling, they're looking, they're searching, not knowing what happened. And so when I came back and told them where I was, obviously I was a little embarrassed, and I promised I would not go AWOL again. It's hard to believe that happened almost 40 years ago. And I came through it relatively unscathed. I like to think that my friends and I make wiser decisions these days, at least for the most part, but I still don't go sliding.
She just threw up as soon as she got off the stage. Just kidding. She did great. So we're going to take a 5-minute intermission, or as long as it takes people to cycle in through the bathrooms. But before we do that, where's my note? Some brown leather gloves are in the ticket booth. If you're like, oh, I was wondering where I left those, that's where you left them. There's also a glasses case left over from Captain Vera Folly. So if you were here and you brought a glasses case and you can't find it, it's in the ticket booth. And lastly, if you enjoy this kind of thing, there is a poetry slam across the street at the UCC Meeting House, Friday, April 29th, with Jeff Hewitt presiding over the event. And more information will be coming out of it's sponsored by your Mad River Valley Library. So take 5, 7, maybe. We'll ring the shaker. All right, see you in a bit.
All right, welcome back, people. Woo! Are we having fun? Yes. Okay, just checking. Next up, we have Charlotte Robinson. Woo! Let's hear it for the Robinsons. Woo! You guys aren't gonna like form a cult or anything, are you? Freaking me out. You guys, you travel in packs of like 7 to 10 people everywhere you go. It's a little freaky for the rest of us. Okay, that's good. That's good that you're happy. All right, so Charlotte never imagined herself on stage or becoming a crazy chicken lady, but somehow now she's both. She declared to have met the best people, like we told her to say that, and she's having a blast learning new things and sharing. When asked the question, what's your favorite smell, she exclaimed, oh, my favorite smell is a sweaty horse mixed with leather and a natural fly repellent. Please welcome Charlotte.
Oh, look at that. It's perfect.
Oh, look, thank you. I love horses and I love children. My Nana gave me a love for horses and children and kept me in horses for my entire life. She's since passed, but I'm still into horses and children. I'm totally blanking. Hold on, let me just get my thoughts. Okay, so my Nana was a stereotypical German woman. She was firm, strong, and very, very frugal. She had a drawer full of bread bags, twist ties, rubber bands, a huge rubber band ball. I don't think she ever took a rubber band off of, but it was fun to play with. And she just was cheap. And 2 stories that come to mind about sort of to give you a picture of Nana are, we had a lake house and we went there about every weekend. It was in the same town, but it was just a nice little escape. And we had a bag, we had snacks. And I went one time to grab a bag of Fritos and I pull it out and there's 2 holes in the corners. So I go to throw it away and she just intercepts it, takes the bag, dumps it in a bowl, runs her fingers through it, and says, it's fine, and shoves the bowl back at me. I'm not hungry anymore. The other story is she trained horses. We called it broke horses. And in 1976, she was bucked off a horse, fell and broke her hip. And she hauled herself onto the mounting block, called over 2 men and says, get me up on that horse. That's what you do when you fall off of a horse. So they help her up on the horse. She takes 5 or 6 steps. They get her off. She's like pasty white, about to pass out, waits for the ambulance, broke it, pins, hospital, everything. But anyway, that's the kind of spirit that she had. She was on the swim team in college. She loved anything sports, from tetherball to horseback riding and everything in between. She was short hair, very athletic build, wide shoulders. And boy, I'm having a hard time. Sorry, y'all. But anyway, she gave me my love of horses and children. She started one of the first handicap riding programs in the country when I was in high school, and started a Girl Scout troop. She taught at an all-girls deaf and blind school. Some of the kids had physical disabilities as well as cognitive disabilities. And these Girl Scouts stayed in touch with her for into their adult years. They showed up at her memorial. Some of them even gave a little speech. She was fabulous. So in her spirit, I started with a very dear friend and my daughter a riding school in 2015 in Warren. We did summer camps, lessons, and I did leave out when I spaced out in the beginning that my grandmother had a riding program. And as most family members do with their own family, she was super hard on me. And I always got the crappy little ponies that would run away with you, try to scrape you off on a tree, because she couldn't give those to the paying people. But I still loved horses, and those are some of my fondest memories. So we started this riding program, and it was fantastic. Spring, summer, fall, it was just the bomb. Kids, riding, I absolutely loved it. And in the winter, we had to shut down because we didn't have an indoor. But we still had a couple of working students. Well, the Warren School ran a ski program. We live right off of Blueberry Lake cross country. And every Friday, many of our kids went to the Warren School and would come to this ski program. And it was such a blast to be outside and hear them, oh, look, there's this horse or that horse, about our 20-plus horses. And occasionally I'd be outside and they'd wave and I'd say hi, or they'd come over and say hi. And it was just really fun. You know, I'd hear things like, oh, look, there's Tank. He's the biggest horse. I tried it. You know, they're sharing with their brothers, their sisters, their family, whatever. So one day I forgot that it was Friday and had decided it was a beautiful end of March day, bluebird sky, really cold, 15 degrees, but just, you know, crisp blue with that hot sun that you get this time of year. And I said, beer hot tub. So I put my dogs in the kitchen. Nobody's home. I'm hardly ever home alone. No one's home. I want total peace and quiet. Put my dogs in the kitchen. I sprint out to the hot tub naked, get about up to my waist, and I'm like, sunglasses and beer. So I actually had gotten my beer, sunglasses. So I run back to the door, turn the handle. My stupid dogs had locked the door, jumping up on it to spy on me. So I'm stranded and naked, but at least I have a beer. So about that time, I hear little voices and swish, 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 and I see 20 children coming my way. So I hunker in. We have this little overhang over our porch, and I hunker in by the door, and I'm just going to wait because they're just going to ski by, right? No, it's my kids, and they need to tell all of their friends who every one of the 23 horses are. And they're like, no, that brown horse with the purple blanket is Betty. Well, no, that horse is not Betty with the purple blanket. Betty's wearing a green blanket, but who gives a shit because I'm naked. And the hot tub's way over there. So, but I'm like, I'm cool, I got this. I'm a Vermonter, I got it. So I just kind of hunker down. Well, my dogs see me, so they start barking. So all heads turn to where I am. But I'm in the corner, I'm good. And then the talking slows down, and I'm like, this is great. And I think they're done, but then they start again. And this goes on for like 5 million hours, and I'm freezing. So then they actually do start moving. And the horses start walking away. Dogs are quiet. So I see them pass this group of horses, and I sprint as fast as I can to the hot tub. So I have to stop myself because the ski trail is behind me. So my rear end is facing the ski trail. And getting in our hot tub is no easy feat. There's 2 stairs, no railing, and I have a bad back. So I'm just, it looks kind of like, you're the ski trail. Looks sort of like 1, 2. Okay, so you got that. All right. So I run as fast as I can. I go to do that. I swing one leg over and I hear hysterical laughing. Oh my God, Charlotte just got in the hot tub and she's naked. Silence. All I hear is shh, shh, shh. So as I'm sitting there with my beer, which is at this point super cold, don't have my sunglasses, I just start smiling and thinking to myself, how much Nana would have loved that story. And then I picture how much better Nana would have done it. She would have sprinted across there. She would have jumped over like a ninja with a gin and tonic in her hand and never spilled a drop.
It was funny. So remember, we've heard these stories. This is our 3rd time hearing the stories. Joe, you've heard this, what, 10 times? But Susan's back there reenacting every piece of it. Yeah, that's what I said. Okay, ready? It's an audience pick.
It is an audience pick. You ready?
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready? Here we go. All right, we've got Joe Robinson. Come on down. All right.
Another Robinson.
Another Robinson. Wow, Joe.
Did he move?
So nobody really put their name in there.
Hey, Joe, happy birthday.
Good one.
Okay.
Okay.
Who'd you pick?
Seriously, we have Carrie. Come on down. Woo!
You may recognize Carrie from the ticket booth.
What's your favorite smell?
The smell of wood smoke.
Ooh.
Yes.
All right, give it up, everybody, for Carrie.
All right. Well, my stories are inspired by Marcy, and now I have another one by Charlotte. I have a sledding story and a hot tub story. All right, sledding story. It's 1987, thereabouts. I'm in undergraduate school in Rochester, New York, where I'm born and raised. And it's the end of the first semester, so it's January, it's cold, it's snowy. And my sister and I actually go to school together there. We're roommates, and we've made a whole bunch of friends. And we all study together, and we've been drinking lots of coffee so that we can stay awake to study. So I don't even know what time. It's winter, it's cold, and we're like, let's take a study break. So a couple of my friends say, hey, let's go up to French House Hill and go sledding. So we said, okay, that sounds great. So we went up to French House. This is where the French students get to live. It's this beautiful house. And they have cafeteria trays. So we borrow their cafeteria trays, and we take turns coming down the hill and coming down the hill. And my sister totally wipes out. I mean, like crazy wipes out. I begin laughing and laughing. And what you should probably know about me is when I laugh, if I have this much pee in me, I pee. And I'd been drinking a lot of coffee, so I had a lot of pee. And it was cold, and I don't know, if it's cold out and you start to pee, you can't stop. So I'm laughing, and I'm peeing. And all of a sudden, my pants are completely soaked. But you know what? We were having so much fun. We sledded for, I don't know, probably another half an hour. And then by the time we were done doing that, My sweatpants were frozen solid. Like, knock, 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 solid. And here's the other thing. They weren't my sweatpants. They were my sister's sweatpants. That was my sledding story. This is my hot tub story. I love this story. So a few years ago, actually, oh my God, it was 11 years ago. Anyway, I took a job in Vermont. My husband had to come along about 15 months later after he found a job here in Solar House. And I was living in this lovely apartment above a 4-car garage. Beautiful people, love them, they're still my friends. They had a hot tub. So part of the deal for renting this apartment was I'd watch it while they were away on vacation, and they would travel quite a bit. So my husband had come from, at the time he lived in Albany, New York, to Vermont for a weekend to visit before he'd moved here, and he decided he wanted to use the hot tub. And I'm like, all right, go ahead. You can use the hot tub. I'm not going to use it because, you know, John is pretty particular. That was the name of one of the folks that owns the house there. So my husband went and used the hot tub. So it's the next day, and John and Faith come back from wherever they were, and my husband and I are on this elevated deck. And John calls up, and he's like, hey, did one of you guys use the hot tub? And I've got my back turned. I'm like, I knew it. I knew John was going to know. Somehow he was going to know. So Jason, my husband, turns and says, oh yeah, the lid looked like it was open, so I went up there to close it. It wasn't at all. And it was, it's open, so I thought I'd get in there. So John then says, oh, were you wearing your bathing suit? And my husband said, well, yes. He's like, well, that explains it. I always go in naked, and I insist that Faith does also. So now I've got my back turned, and I'm laughing so hard because my husband, little did he know, had gone out into their naked hot tub waters and had himself a little hot tub. And that's my hot tub story.
Can you see those stairs okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because Jay could get the house lights for you, no problem.
Oh, I know this place inside.
Erica Nichols Frazier is a writer and editor with an MFA from the Bennington Writing Seminars. She's a staff writer for the Valley Reporter and lives in Waitsfield with her husband, cat, dogs, and chickens. When asked the question, what is your favorite smell? Erica said that she loves the smell of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. They agree with you. Please welcome Erica.
So there I was, lying awake all night in an uncomfortable cot in the Bruxelles Charleroi police barracks, watching the red light of a camera in the corner blinking on and off, on and off. But let's back up. As a college student, I wanted to explore the world. I wanted to meet new people and speak new languages and eat new foods. I came from a family of travelers, and I'd already had the opportunity to visit Ghana, France, Switzerland, Austria, Germany, Barbados, Jamaica, and St. Croix. But still, I wanted more. I wasn't just going to study one semester abroad. I was going to do 2. Through the School for International Training, I would study globalization of the modern Arab world in Tunisia in the fall, and arts in the post-communist system in Prague in the spring. I was in a dingy internet cafe in Kharadin, Tunisia, when I received an email from the School for International Training about 2 months before my program in Prague would start. They instructed me to mail in my passport to get my student visa. Seeing as I was in North Africa for another month and a half, I would not be mailing my passport anywhere. So I had to take the train to Tunis and trek across the hot, dusty city to the Czech embassy, where they told me that I could get my passport, or my visa, when I arrived in Europe, but I'd have to leave the country to do so. They also told me I'd be free to travel for up to 3 months in Europe after my program, no problem. So it took 3 train trips from Prague to Dresden, Germany to get my student visa. During one of the interviews, I was told Vermont is not a real state. But we worked that out, and I finally got the student visa. During the program, we traveled to Slovakia and Poland, which is an area I've been thinking about a lot lately. And a couple friends and I took a weekend at a hostel in Budapest. But still, I wanted more. I wanted to explore Europe on my own terms. No schedule, no plans. So I decided that after the program ended, I would spend the summer backpacking across Europe on my own before starting senior year at Sarah Lawrence College. So it was going to begin with family. My mother and my grandmother came to Prague, and I showed them around the city for a week. They took a suitcase home full of my winter clothes and books, and just me and my hiking backpack were ready to go. I met my aunt, her partner, and her mother in Ireland, and spent a week traveling the country with them before they dropped me off at the Shannon airport to head to Brussels. My solo adventure was about to begin. I was a little nervous, a little scared, but excited. Didn't last long though. It was about 9:30 p.m. when I arrived at the Bruxelles-Charleroi airport. A customs agent frowned at my passport and called another agent over, and they pulled me aside into a little back room where I waited for hours. I was able to tell that there was something wrong with my visa. It was about 1:30 a.m. before the official rejected paperwork finally came in. They told me that because my academic program had ended, they believed I was trying to stay in Europe indefinitely. Never mind the fact that I had a ticket home or that I was still enrolled in college in the States. They told me I could contest the decision, but I'd have to wait in that same back room, maybe for up to a couple days, and there were no guarantees. I asked in my politest French if I could please use the computer in the back room to book the first flight home. They were sending me back to Ireland in the morning. Good luck after that. I was worried that I would be stopped with that rejected stamp in other countries, and that I would have to spend nights in other back rooms. So I maxed out my credit card buying the first flight back from Dublin to New York in the morning. They piled me into a police van with an older gentleman and took us a few miles down the road to the police barracks. There were no other women in the police barracks that night, so it was just me on my uncomfortable cot, staring at that light, blinking on and off, until a guard finally came around 5 a.m. to bring me back to the airport. As we drove the few miles back, I watched the sun rise over the left side of the fields, the only view of Belgium that I'd get. My solo backpacking adventure was over before it had even begun. Now, because I was being deported, there were protocols. They had to lock down my passport in a little metal box in the cockpit, and they had to secure me on the plane before any other passengers boarded. So I felt pretty foolish being escorted by 4 guards with AK-47s down the tarmac while the entire plane watched. You know they were all thinking, is she a criminal or a rock star? My mother would say years later at my wedding. My best friend would answer, she's a bit of both. Just me, my hiking backpack, my Irish sweater, and my aviator sunglasses. So as I waited as I sat on the plane, when no one chose to sit on either side of me, on the short flight from Brussels to Dublin, I didn't care anymore about meeting new people. I didn't care about speaking new languages. I didn't even care about trying any new foods. I just wanted to go home. Thank you.
All right. We're at the final storyteller of the evening. Wow. Awesome. Next up, we have Wes Olds. Wes discovered the social power of storytelling in elementary school. A man after my own heart. I spent a lot of time in the principal's office for telling stories. And it's been a part of his life in one form or another ever since. When asked the question, "What's your favorite smell?" he responded with, "A smell I enjoy is gin." Please welcome Wes Olds.
She had long, flowing auburn hair, bright hazel eyes, and a smile and a laugh that would make my heart melt. I had fallen head over heels for her. Her name was Deanna, and she was my first crush. She was gorgeous. I, in the 6th grade, was a scrawny little runt. She had the best fashion and always looked perfect, whereas I was wearing hand-me-downs from my older brothers that never quite fit right. And she was social and could talk to anybody, but I was pathologically shy. As you can see, we were not compatible at all. And also, she was way high up on the social ladder, and I was way down here somewhere. But I desperately wanted to talk to her. So I thought, what's the worst that could happen? Well, the answer I came back with absolutely terrified me. So I never got the courage to talk to her. I just gazed at her across the classroom every day. Which is probably what I was doing one day in spring when our English teacher, Mrs. Jaggers, gave us an assignment. We each had to write a poem. And let me tell you about something about Mrs. Jaggers. I hated her. There was something about her. I couldn't quite describe it at the time, but now that I'm older and have a more colorful vocabulary, the word I was looking for was sadistic. She seemed to take pleasure in our pains. So anyway, we had to write a poem. She said, well, write something about you're passionate about. Something I'm passionate about? What am I passionate? Deanna. That's what I'm passionate about. I'll write a poem about her. I mean, this is perfect. I finally have a way to express how I really feel about her, and nobody will ever know. Oh wait, but Mrs. Jaggers will know. I better make sure not to put Deanna's name in the poem. So I went home from school that day, and for the first time probably in my entire life, I actually went straight to my homework as soon as I got home, instead of watching cartoons all day. Because this poem had to be perfect. Every word, every line, every rhyme had to be perfect. And when I was done and I read my 12-line masterpiece describing my fantasy day of sharing a nice cold ice cream cone on a warm sunny day with that amazing girl, well, I thought it wasn't half bad. And I even put a little picture at the bottom of me and Deanna holding ice cream cones, because that's what you do in 6th grade. So the next day came. Mrs. Jaggers collects all the papers, nothing unusual. But remember I said she was sadistic? She went to the front of the room, sat down, and proceeded to read them out loud. But wait, she wasn't reading anybody's name, just the poems. So I'm thinking, okay, I could do this. So when she gets to my poem, I just need to act cool and calm and nobody know it was me that wrote that poem. I could do that, right? Yeah, sort of. So she starts reading this poem about a boy that has a crush on a girl, and I try to act all nonchalant and pretend I don't care about some stupid poem about a boy that likes a girl. But I'm sure my face turned bright red, and I'm sure everybody knew it was me that wrote that poem. Or at least that's what I thought. But the whole rest of the day, none of my other classmates asked me about it. So I was thinking, okay, I got away with this. This is perfect. But the cat was out of the bag. Everybody in class knew that there was some boy in class that had a crush on one of the girls in class. So what could I do? Well, I could do nothing, and that probably would have been the safe thing to do. But in one of the few semi-brave moments of my adolescent life, I decided to ask her out on a date. So in true junior high style, the next morning, I snuck into school early before anybody else was there, went to her locker, slipped a note in, and then ran away as fast as I could before anybody could see me. Now, I don't remember exactly what the note said, but it was something along the lines of, I wrote the poem, and it was about you. If you like me too, meet me at the center of the mall on Saturday at 2. I'll be holding 2 ice cream cones, one for me and one for you. So Saturday comes, and I get to the mall wicked early, and I'm walking around for probably 2 or 3 hours, checking my watch nervously every 5 minutes. 2 o'clock comes close, so I make my way to Haagen-Dazs, I buy 2 vanilla ice cream cones, walk to the center of the mall, find an empty bench in a big open space so she's sure to see me when she walks by, and I sit down and wait for my dream girl to arrive. And I wait. And I wait. And I wait. After about an hour, I stand up and throw away what's left of the ice cream cone, except for the part that melted all over my hands, and I walk home alone. But I learned a very important lesson that day. I learned to listen to that voice in the back of my head that asks what's the worst that could happen, because you know what, it probably will, because my life was over. I was devastated. But this was junior high. And in the world of junior high drama, my disaster was soon old news. Everybody else moved on and forgot about it. I never did. I was always staring at her from across something. But by senior year, it wasn't just the classroom anymore, it was that same mall. Because I got a job at the popcorn store, and she got a job at the cinnamon bun store right across the mall. So every night, I could stare at her across the mall, well, on the quiet nights, which was most nights, except for Saturdays. We were also in the same calculus class that year, and I was acing every exam. Deanna, not so much. So she needed some help in math. She asked me for help, and in exchange, she would sneak out cinnamon buns from the cinnamon bun store to pay me. How could I say no? Now, nothing ever came of it besides some friendly tutoring, but I tell you, night after night of sitting on those god-awful, uncomfortable metal mall chairs, but just inches away from that auburn hair, quote-unquote accidentally brushing her hand whenever I pointed at her paper or her book, and I found excuses to do that a lot, and seeing her eyes light up when she got an answer right and knowing that was me, I did that. Those nights were amazing. And, you know, in hindsight, those amazing nights were probably better than anything that could have happened in 6th grade if she actually had shown up at the mall that Saturday afternoon.
So we would like to invite all our storytellers to the stage for a final bow and recognition of your hard work and bravery. So if you're in the audience, come on up.
Wendy, Carrie.
Step forward. Step forward. So storytellers on that side, hosts on this side. That would just be.
Should we move over?
And thank you all for coming out and enjoying these stories with us. Have a great evening. Jay, house lights. Oh, that was great, Jay. Nice job.